Why do you think men and women aren't having these types of conversations, even though together is the only way they can make these relationships work?
I mean, I think that's just part of the old paradigm, you know. I think men are, men are struggling too, but they're struggling on the other side of the coin. There's a lot of, there's this push nowadays for like, this sort of like, oh, we, and obviously it's not all men, but like a lot of men feel um, like they, like if I can't be the masculine man, if I'm not the breadwinner, like if, my wife wants to be like too independent, I'm like, who am I? Because back in the day, that's what it was. And I think a lot of men are kind of struggling with like, well, with this new paradigm, like where do I fit in there? And just I think that women have I think women are navigating this differently than men. I think that women are having more conversations about it. But I think that, there is an epidemic of male loneliness. I think it is difficult for them to talk about it. And I think that both sides, going back to what is a toxic relationship, I think a lot of us don't have good role models of what is a healthy relationship. And so we assume that the other person is going to give us what we want. A man who has been raised in a traditionally, hyper masculine, traditional masculine household might expect like I should be a breadwinner, I should be there to show up for my woman, and I should, do all of these things. And maybe he's expecting a woman to give that to him to show him love. And then when he's meeting all of these women, they're not giving him that. It might feel like, hey, why are you shutting me out? And so it kind of feels like the other person is not giving them, what they deserve, or they're not seeing them, or they're not giving them the love. But that's not really what's happening. It's just what that means is different. But it feels, I think, for a lot of people, like, and you hear women saying this stuff too, like, oh, men are, totally gross and they don't care about women. And, that's true for some guys. But, I think for, like, gosh, just had an example in my mind. They'll have this idea that, men are, like, oh, he's just trying to keep me down. Like he just wants me to be like a trad wife or something like that. A lot of these guys don't actually even really want that. A lot of men, I think, would be very happy to have a woman who can be on the same page as him, who's going to pay the bills with him, who's going to be by his side. But like if he doesn't, that's what he's operating off of, then that's what he's bringing to the table. And at the same time, I've also had male friends who were who really did actually want a woman who wanted a girlfriend or partner who wanted to be going to be an equal, but then they ended up attracting women who really wanted this super traditional gender role. And she was like, hey, I want you to pay for everything. I want you to fulfill this, really specific role in my life that just wasn't him. And so, from that perspective, it might feel like, oh, she doesn't really see me or she doesn't really care about me. And it's not that, it's a really, I think we're culturally at a pivotal moment and there's a lot of change. And I think that we're also being asked to ask a lot of questions within ourselves about like, what do we believe about relationships? And then also, what do we actually bring to the table? Because if we don't know that we're operating off of this belief system, we don't know that the way that we're acting, we think that we're doing something that's, good and normal and fine. We think that this is what we're bringing to the table. When somebody else doesn't take it that way, well, then, like if I'm saying, oh, I'm just trying to be, like the sweetest girlfriend that I can, and my relationships don't really work out, I'm going to assume that it's his fault. I'm not going to assume that I had anything to do with it. So it's really, yeah, it's tough.
I've seen some people rebel against the old model in such a way that what they would do is that they would say, okay, the old model, for example, right, was more behavior based. This is what is that you do. This is what I can do. Maybe I can cook, I can provide, whatever the situation is, right? To a more superficial. It's more looks based, your physique, and things like that. I've heard men and women complain about a man will say that, well, a woman has told me that what she brings to the table is sex. And then you have women say that what a man brings to the table is sex. So you have both of these things, which are one of the pillars of a healthy relationship, but is not the main thing that's going to drive a healthy relationship. And then you have some other people that, okay, it's income based. He has to be making X amount of money. She has to be able to do this. But what I think is happening is deep down, when you break down what they actually want, it's still shades of the old paradigm. It's okay. Why do you want someone's money? Because I want to feel safe. I want someone to provide for me. I want to have security. And then when you ask the man, okay, why do you want a woman to look that way? Well, you know what? I want her to be healthy because when I have children, I want her to, like, it's an old thing where the healthier the person looks and their body type, you can say that, okay, you know what? This person can have more than one child, right? So sometimes from the male perspective, I think men, and maybe women go through this as well, I think men get too hung up on things that's going to get them to the door of a relationship, the looks, the hips, the butts, the breasts, whatever, the long hair. They don't focus on what gets them through the door, meaning that, okay, is she compatible with what you want in life? Have you had those types of conversations? Does she want to have children? Is religion going to be a part of it? Is spirituality going to be a part of it? How's the mental health? Because there's so many people out there that when they get involved in relationships, they're still hurting in some sense of the way, right? But they're relying on this other person. I was like, okay, I was cheated on, but let me get in a relationship quickly because I don't have to think about that instead of doing the work, right? Do you notice that there are gaps in maybe people's growth as not only a person, but a person that has resolved some of their past issues?
Oh yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Well, going back to what we were talking about earlier, like what is the basis of a toxic relationship? Expecting that, looking for somebody to provide something for you, to provide um, to make you feel a certain way, to take away this pain. And like that's the basis of a toxic relationship. And I think what a lot of people are struggling with is it's like eventually they'll get to the point where they're like, hey, actually, I've been doing this and it's not working. And I don't really understand what the problem is. It's like if I am hungry and I'm only eating chips, eventually I'm going to say, you know what, I feel sick a lot. Like, I don't know what else is out there, but like maybe I should re-examine my diet. I might not even realize that it's my diet that's causing the problem. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, like I said, the thing is we don't because it's something that is so subconscious, we don't even realize that we're doing it. Like I did a group course one time, and one of the girls in the class was so a lot of the work that I do is around understanding what are our relationship beliefs. What are the things that we were given to when we were a kid? What did we see? What were the examples that we had? And how does that manifest in our relationships, right? What is that pattern? What pattern does that turn into? And we were talking in the class, and one of the things that she stopped and she just kind of said it casually. She was like, "Oh, I really want somebody, who will have my back and support me." And that's something that most of us would think is like a totally just a given, but she stopped and it was such a visceral reaction that she had never even stopped to think about that. So, she had been trying to do everything that she could, everything that she thought she could do the right way, but she wasn't actually pursuing any of the things that actually really meant something to her. And so we do all these things that we think are going to make us happy or going to give us the relationship that we think we want, but we don't even realize that there's all of this other stuff happening in the background that's driving us or changing our perception of things that it can actually end up taking the wheel and we don't even realize it. So for me, actually, that's why I need to use spiritual tools like tarot with my clients because it I feel like it really gives us a way to kind of peel back the curtain and say like, all right, what's going on underneath the surface, right? Like what's really going on? What's because relationships and our psychology and mental health, all of those things exist in the ethereal, right? Those exist in that other space. And that's something that we can't see. And that also makes it really difficult to even examine these beliefs because we don't see it. We just eventually have, enough bad experiences and that will make us realize, wait, I gotta change something.